Hello and welcome to this video where we will properly learn how to index a comic book or a series of comic books that are not present in the INDUCKS database. So the INDUCKS database is a worldwide database that includes information about every Disney publication you can think of, including these old comic books here. As you can see here, I've got this Dumbo book from Colombia that has a bunch of stories. Some of them are already in INDUCKS, some of them are not. But today we're going to index a specific issue that is not present in the database as of the making of this video, which is this particular one, Dumbo 59, the Colombian edition. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to want to do is make a note of the titles of each one of the stories that are featured in the comic book. So we would take a note of this code, and as you can see here, there are some story codes. You can see this one is D5734. Sometimes it's hard to read the codes. There are some stories that don't have a printed code at all. So there are other methods to sort of look up the story within the database itself, but we're going to go into that a little later. In the meantime, just let's take note of the titles of the stories, and whenever we can also take note of the story codes, and we will move on to the next step. All right, so in order to keep track of the different stories here, I've created this very simple Google Sheet to keep track of the printed codes, the story titles, and the page count, and it'll automatically calculate the page number, the ending page, and the total number of pages so that we can have all the information we need when it comes to indexing our stories in the INDUCKS database. So I'm going to fill this out. I'm going to take a look at the printed comic book, and I'm going to index every story that's in it. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we're looking at Dumbo issue 59. So the first story here is called El cliente tiene la razón. All right, so we've finished entering the story codes and the story titles of every story inside this particular issue. And as you can see, the last ending page here should be the total number of pages that we counted at the beginning. So it coincides, it's actually 96 pages. So that tells us the page count for each story is actually correct. For a couple of stories here, there are no codes because they were either too difficult to read or I wasn't able to find them. So there are other ways that we can use other than the story code to find the story within the database, but we're going to look at that a little later in the video. So the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to head over to the INDUCKS website. In order to use it, you need to have an account, and it's absolutely free to create an account. Then you're going to have your username and password, and you're going to be able to look up stories and index stories that are not already in the database. And that is exactly what we're going to do. So if we head over to the comics collection section, and we choose a country, for instance, Colombia, and we type, or we select all on one page, you're going to see every Colombian publication that has been recorded in the database. And the ones with check marks are the ones that I already own. So as you can see, I own a few of these. But in the case of Dumbo, issue number 59 is actually checked here. And if we click the title of the publication, it's going to show us the cover view of this particular kind of story. So if we head over to number 59, we can see that it has no cover image and no indexed stories. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to enter these stories that we just wrote down here on the sheet, and we want to enter these into the database. So in order to do that, we are going to click Index this issue online. And there are a few unfinished indexes here, but we're going to edit this particular one, which is the one that we're actually working on. And we're going to click Edit. So it's going to show us a default entry here for the cover page. As you can see, it has obviously just one page, and there's no story code assigned to it. So if we go back and take a look at what the actual image is for the cover of this specific issue, we're going to see that it's Donald Duck sort of drying his nephews with a towel right outside of the bathtub. So we're going to try and find an image that matches that description. So in order to do that, we're going to open the advanced search on a new tab. And to find the cover image, I usually enter a single page, so one page. For kind, I select cover or illustration. And in characters, I just type the codes for the characters that appear on that specific cover. So I know the code for Donald Duck is DD, and the nephews is HDL, which is Huey, Dewey, and Louie. So let's start with that and see what comes up. We can just hit the Enter key on our keyboard, and it'll show a bunch of results, right? So it would be very impractical for us to go through all of these results just to find that specific image that we're looking for. So let's just go back, and here over in the keywords section, we can type something that has to do with the image that we're trying to find. So for instance, we can type drying. So as you can see, the English description here says drying clothers from car and antenna. That's not what we're looking for, and it only found one result that matches the criteria that we just entered here. So let's see if the keyword towel gives us a result. So as you can see here, the third image is exactly what we're looking for, and there's a variation here, which is this fourth image, but the one that we're looking for is more similar to the third one here. So we're going to click the story code for that particular image, and yes, this actually very closely matches the cover of the issue that we are indexing, the Dumbo issue. So we're going to use that one. So I have this Firefox extension that I developed myself, which is the INDUCKS to CSV extension. Let me know if you're interested in downloading it. Once you install it, all this does is when I click this button, is it copies the relevant information of this page that we're seeing here. And then if we go back to the index that we're creating, we can hit the edit button on the story code, or on the cover, I shall say. And then we click the Donald Duck button again, and it'll paste the hero, the page count, and the story code for that specific entry that we're editing right now. So all we have to do is click the update button. And as you can see, the story code has been updated. The number of pages and the hero have also been updated. And we're done here with the information of the cover page. Next up, we're going to add the first entry of this particular issue. So in order to do that, we just click add a new entry here. And then we're going to head over to our sheet, and we are going to copy the story title for the first one of the list, and we're going to paste it here in the title field. And in the new tab that we had opened to look for the cover, we're going to hit Advanced Search. So the first option that we can do is look up the exact story title here. And as you can see, there's a couple of stories that match that title. So if we want to be 100% sure that we're dealing with the correct story, all we need to do is compare the story code and the number of pages. So as we can see here, the story code is D5734, which exactly matches this result here. And it's got 6 pages, which also matches what we had noted on the sheet before. So all we need to do is click the code, and it'll take us to the actual entry for that particular story. And then we click the Donald Duck button again, right? Let's go back to the index and click the Donald Duck button to paste the information. So it's going to fill out the hero, the page count, and the story code. So there are some issues that actually feature a printed page number on the actual pages. But in this case, as you saw earlier, the pages don't have numbering, right? So what I usually do is I start counting on page number 1 for the first page of the first story, so that the last page of the last story is going to be the actual number of pages. Now, in certain stories like France, for instance, in certain issues, they count the front cover as the first page. So the first story would usually begin on page 3 or page 4, depending on whether there is a summary page at the beginning or not. Well, each publisher, they have like their own rules, but in this case, we're going to start on page number 1. So let's go back to the index, and here where it says page number, we just enter 1. As you can see, if this was the front cover, we would leave that empty. And we're ready to go. So we just hit update, and we move on to the next story. So we add a new entry again, copy the story title. This has a rather unusual character here, so maybe we're not going to find it. Let me see if we do, and if we don't, we can also look it up with the story code. So as you can see, S0208 matches this story exactly. So we're going to copy the information, head over to the index again and paste it, and enter the page number, which is number 7. So the page count matches this here. So once again, this is correct. And we're going to click update in order to move on to the next story. We can also, instead of just copying the story title and looking for it, we can copy the story code, go to advanced search, and on this field where it says story code starts with, we can just paste it and hit the enter key, and there you go. This is exactly the story that we were looking for. We're going to add the new entry, paste the information, and we're going to copy the title again, paste it here, enter the page number, which is number 25, hit update, and that's it. So this is a pretty straightforward process whenever you have the story codes. So let's suppose we're going to try and look up this story, which does not have a printed story code. We can just go to advanced search, search for the title first, and as you can see, there are no matches. So we're going to have to dig a little deeper here and take a look at the characters inside the story and the number of pages and the number of rows per page. So let's do exactly that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to enter the number of pages on the printed story. So it's got 10 pages, so we're going to enter that right here, 10 pages. We're going to look for a story. This is not, it's not a newspaper story, it's not a cover or illustration, it's a plain old story. And this has 4 rows per page. So we're going to enter that. We're going to enter some of the characters that are here. So we've got Goofy, Mickey Mouse, we've got Clarabella, and we got Peg-Leg Pete. But actually I can't remember the code for Peg-Leg Pete, so we can just look it up. Let's go over to characters, open a new tab, and we can look it up alphabetically. So we can just hit Control or Command F if you're on a Mac. Peg-Leg Pete. So we can just click the character's name, and the abbreviation is PE, so we can use that to find it, PE, and let's just hit enter to see how many stories match this criteria. So we've got 30 items, which is, it's not a very large number of stories. We could just scroll down and try and see which one of these scans matches the first page of the story that we have on our printed issue. So we're looking for an image of Goofy and his friend on a movie theater, just like this one. Great, so we're going to click the story code, and as you can see, it's an exact match of the story that we were looking for. So we can just copy this code, right, and take it over to the sheet, and then we can go back to the story, copy its information, add a new entry, and paste the info, and let's bring the title over to the entry. And there we have it. So it's 10 pages, 4 strips per page. It's on page number 49, right? And let's hit update. So there's a couple stories here that we didn't index, but you can always move them up and down just using these arrows in order to complete the rest of the issue. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to enter the rest of the stories, and we will continue to see what the next steps are in this process.
1 hour later.
All right, so after a little while, we have finished indexing all 12 stories that appear on this specific issue of the Dumbo magazine. And as you can see here, we've got them all lined up in order according to our Google Sheet. The page count is there, the page numbers are there, the story codes and story titles are there. So we are ready to submit this into INDUCKS. But before we do that, there's a couple more things that we need to add to the publication. So let's go ahead and edit the headers. Another important thing to notice is right there in the front cover, we should also make note of the price of the country in which the particular issue is sold. So in this case, it would be 95 Colombian pesos. Now, if we head over to the back cover, we're going to see some important information here, like the editorial, the publishing company, the distribution company, and some more information. Sometimes the year and the date is also included there, so keep that in mind. It's also important to count the number of pages of this particular issue, so we're going to do that very quickly. So we've got one, or I usually count them in twos, so 2, 4, 6.
A few moments later.
So usually these issues will almost always have 96 pages. Of course, you're going to find issues that have more pages or less pages, but in this particular case, it's 96. So for the date, there was no reliable information printed in the issue that would let us know what year or what month this was published on. So we're going to leave it blank. There is no particular title specific to that issue. For the price, we had seen that the price was 95 Colombian pesos. So we're just going to enter 95 here. Number of pages is 96. And, well, we don't need to add any comments. We can leave this as it is right now. So let's just hit update. And the last thing we're going to want to do is we're going to take a photo of the cover and we're going to upload it into the system. Okay, so in order to take a well-lit photo of the cover, I use this little device here that lets me illuminate the book in a pretty uniform way. I just put my phone here on top and I can take the photo of the front cover. Let's go ahead and take a closer look. This is the Google Drive app, which has a scanning feature, and it lets me just hit this button here and it says position document in frame, hold steady, and that's it. So it's already created a photograph which is very well lit, and now I can just adjust the corners and upload it into my Google Drive. If I wanted to edit the details here, all I have to do is just click crop and rotate, and this lets me edit the actual corners of the page so that the image looks a little better. It's not very precise because there is a slight curvature here, but hey, that's the best we can do. We just hit apply and there you go. So this is the image that we're going to use for the cover on the website. Next up, we're going to head over to Google Drive and find the file or the photo that we just took and take a look at it. It looks pretty good. So what we need to do now has to do with the way in which these images should be named in order to upload them into the database. So INDUCKS has a very strict naming convention for the cover photos and generally all the scans that you upload onto the site. So first thing we need to do is identify the story code or the issue code of the cover image that we're going to upload. So we're going to go ahead and close this preview. We're going to right click and rename, and we're going to build the name step by step. So for this particular series, the code or the publication code is DUM. The issue is 59, but we need to add a trailing or a padding 0. So it would be 059. Cover page is usually page A. So we enter A and the page number 1, right? So we also need to prepend the country code, which is CO for Colombia, underscore, and another underscore right before the issue number. So finally, we need to append an extension. So in this case, it's a JPEG file, so we add the .jpg extension. And that's how you name front covers for INDUCKS. So it's the country code, the publication code, the issue number, and this sort of suffix of A_001 and the file extension. So once that's done, we can click OK. We can download this file. And let's head over to our index again. So let's take a look at the online indexing section. So let's head over to the list of publications. Let's head over to Colombia. Let's click Dumbo, issue 59. So as you can see, the index that we just created, we haven't submitted it yet. So there's the option to upload a scan for the front cover here. So this little yellow dot, you can click it and it'll take you to the scan upload page. So as you can see, there's the country, the publication, the issue number, and the page, which is the cover with the code A, which is part of the file name that we just created over on Google Drive. So we're gonna head over to our downloads and we can drag this over to the browse button. And we can see there's the same file name that we chose earlier. So all we need to do to upload this is click the send button. Our cover has been uploaded. So now we can go back to our index. Let's edit the index that we were just working on. And we're ready to go ahead and submit this to the database. Just click Submit to INDUCKS. If you have any additional comments, you can leave them here. And if not, you can just review the information you just entered and click the button here that says definitely submit to INDUCKS. Go ahead and click that. That's it. So it says your index has been submitted to INDUCKS with the ticket, and they give you a ticket number that you can click, and it says here unsolved. So one of the editors of the database is going to look at this information, they're going to review it, and hopefully within 24 hours, sometimes it can take a little longer, they're going to approve it, and it'll be listed with a complete index inside the INDUCKS database. And that is how you submit new information to the database in case your existing stories don't exist within the database itself. So I hope you enjoy this. Let me know if you have any questions or if you want that Firefox extension or add-on. I can send you a link, and thank you for watching.